It seems that Tesla's price cuts are working for them. So I want to share the evidence to support that with you today. And I want to share exactly why I'm not concerned about these price cuts or more in the future. I shared this post over on my Eich account. Go and follow me on there. I post multiple times a day, but it basically shows that Tesla reported 84,159 vehicles sold in China in August. And that number represents a 9.3 increase year over year and a 30.92 percentage increase in sales compared to July. So they have reported this increase in numbers amid price cuts. There have been plenty of Tesla China price cuts, and these numbers are still coming out strong. And don't forget that this data doesn't even account for the Model 3 revamp, Project Highland, that has just been recently released in the Chinese market too. And that vehicle, that revamped vehicle, is actually 12% higher in cost in China than the previous Model 3 vehicle was in China. So this seems to indicate that Tesla are getting more sales on their vehicles in the Chinese market than they did in the previous month of July. That's good, but you can't really compare one month to the previous month. It's more accurate to compare a given month in a given year compared to the same month in the previous year, because there are different months and different quarters especially do tend to have different volumes of sales. But what this shows us by this increase is that actually Tesla were able to sell more vehicles, a higher volume of vehicles with their price cuts in place. And that was kind of the whole point in price cuts: bring the prices down, make the vehicles more affordable, and sell more cars. So it basically seems like the price cuts that they decided to do have been working. But a lot of people are still worrying. They're worrying that these numbers are not good enough to account for all the multiple price cuts that Tesla have done in China. And I've read many times that price cuts for Tesla must mean that no one wants one, that the demand is so low, there's too much competition, and Tesla are forced to do these, and they will be unprofitable and just fall off a cliff. I've seen that narrative many times, but yet Tesla are still one of the biggest companies. Tesla is a very volatile stock. It has a lot of public scrutiny, and of course it's surrounded by constant noise. People always have opinions on this company, and also Wall Street analysts always talk about this one, etc. And it doesn't really help that it's headed by Elon Musk in terms of how much noise there is, because of course he does what he wants when he wants, and that brings a lot of noise in as well. So I try my best not to pay too much attention to the constant high level of noise, and instead just constantly question my own beliefs and my own research about this company. And I look for evidence both for and against my own ideas when it comes to Tesla, to constantly challenge them and see if I need to sort of adapt the way that I'm thinking. So I've done the same thing for the price cuts. I've looked for evidence that I can find to actually say that the price cuts, based on data, based on evidence, based on logical thinking, rational thinking, that these are actually a really bad thing and should be a big indicator as to why you should not hold Tesla stock. I didn't really find exactly that, but let me share what I did find in this video. As you watch this video, drop me a comment. Let me know if you are concerned about Tesla cutting their price. If you have been in the past, now you're not. If you have been and you still are, let me know how you're thinking about that. And it's not just cutting their prices on their vehicles, because they've recently cut the prices on FSD from $15,000 to $12,000. So firstly, price cuts are typically associated with a lack of demand. It's a strategy that companies can employ as a last-minute resort in order to make customers buy their products. It's like when you go to a bakery an hour before they close and all of their produce is reduced, and that's because they are desperate to sell them. They want to make at least some money on those items, but that's not always the case. So you have to question why the company is actually doing it. Sometimes it could be part of a wider strategy and initiative, and I think that is the case when it comes to Tesla. I do see that there is pressure and competition in the Chinese EV market for Tesla from the likes of BYD and other players in that area. So price cuts do help them push back some of that pressure and helps Tesla keep their offerings really competitive. But also, I don't think that Tesla are being absolutely forced backed into a corner and made to do this. They are being flexible and they are prioritizing volume of sales over short-term profit and profit margins, which by the way are still pretty good. So why are they doing this then? It could just be Tesla's reaction to the environment that we're in. It has been quite tough economically, and it's been really difficult for people to make big purchases like cars, or to get these out on finance because the interest rates are so high. So making them more affordable means they become more of an option to the masses. And this helps them work towards their largest mission. And that's really important because everything that Tesla do, the decisions that they make, they are all bounded by their larger mission at play. And that is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And price cuts ultimately help them do this. The more cars they sell that are electric, the less cars that people are driving around that are non-electric vehicles. Therefore, that helps in transferring to sustainable energy. Of course, vehicles are just one part of that, and there's much more at play here. We know everything else that Tesla are doing to help with this one, but it does help them edge that little bit closer to achieving their larger mission. I do think, however, that there is more to this. We've said time and time again on this channel that Tesla are not just a car company. There is no possible way now, with everything else that they're doing, that anyone could argue that they are just a car company. I think that we've moved very much past that point. But anyway, one big thing that they are doing right now is solving FSD, full self-driving. They are shifting towards autonomous vehicles. And I spoke about this in a previous video in quite a lot of detail in terms of why Tesla are going to be the first to solve FSD. So I'll link that somewhere up here. Definitely check that one out. Much research went into that, so I'd appreciate your view on that one, and maybe leave me a comment if you're feeling really nice. But one thing that you need for FSD, to solve FSD, is you need vast amounts of data. And I'm talking vast, so much high quality data that shows safe driving across many environments and many situations, because it's that data that the cameras on the car pick up that then gets fed back and trains the fleet to drive itself. So how do you do that? Well, what you do is you have as many cars out there, as many Teslas out there as you possibly can driving to actually collect this data. How do you do that? Well, you sell more cars. How do you do that? You make your cars more sellable. How do you do that? You make them as affordable as you possibly can. And you realize that in the short term, that will be a knock to profit. But in the long term, that means that you have the data that you need. And that means that one day you can switch on the robo-taxi fleet. And that is where Tesla's valuation starts going absolutely crazy. So the more data that they can collect, the better FSD gets. And that means that Tesla become the first to solve FSD. And the autonomous driving industry is predicted to be way bigger than Tesla's current EV business. So it's a short-term sacrifice for long-term gain and adoption. It's delayed gratification. This graphic is based on Dave Lee's original ideas, but it shows the different S-curves that Tesla could experience. So you'll see that the smallest S-curve, and the one that we're currently in, is just their EV business. Then it moves on to FSD, which is, as you can see, nearly double the size of the EV S-curve. And again, with S-curves, the whole point is that there's a slow initial adoption, then an exponential growth, and then it matures out. That is how S-curves go. And we are going to see, just like we have with EVs, and we're still in that, we're still seeing that now, we're going to see that play out with FSD as well. Then you've got their energy business, which a lot of people are sleeping on. Their mega packs could be absolutely massive. Look, as the world transitions towards sustainable energy, people need somewhere good to store that energy. Think about that. Then think about Tesla's offerings and whether there's any companies that are really competitive with their offerings right now. And of course, if you have a Tesla vehicle, superchargers, whatever, you're probably in their ecosystem already, so you're more likely to turn to the Powerwalls, the mega packs if you're a big company, it makes a lot of sense. So definitely go and look into their energy business. Then up here, you have AI robotics. So this is by far the biggest S-curve. The humanoid robot Optimus that Tesla is working on. It's really hard because we're in very early stages of that, but there is basically a potential for that to be absolutely ginormous, like so big. And the thing is that the work that they're doing on FSD now is going to be relevant for Optimus. Optimus will utilize the same neural net, so it will basically pick up the learnings from the vehicles. So it's not actually going to take as long as people think in terms of how to actually train it. What will take a long time probably is the manufacturing, getting the parts down for as cheap as possible, the regulations behind it, all of that sort of stuff. I think I mentioned him in my previous video as well, but Farzad wrote an absolutely phenomenal post on his Eich account about price cuts, and he speaks about a lot of this stuff in a lot more detail, so that is well worth reading, and I'll link it in the description below. But like I said at the beginning of this video, this data that I showed you doesn't even include the Model 3 revamp, which on Friday, so the 1st of September, was released in China. And that is the first time that Tesla have ever released a vehicle in China before they have in the US. And this will be 12% higher in cost than the previous model. So this means higher margins. These higher margins can maybe offset some of the other price cuts that they've been doing, but it does allow Tesla to have that flexibility in the future to cut the prices again if they want to. But it seems like Tesla are very confident that the sales on this vehicle are going to be good to go in with a 12% price increase in the Chinese market, where they probably have more competition than they do in any other market. And it does seem like a great car. I dive into this in a recent video that I did. Again, I'll link it here. But this car has many great features. It has a rear display. This means that the backseat passengers are able to watch movies, control the music, control their own temperature settings, and that's going to be a game changer when it comes to family cars, because entertaining kids on long road trips, game changer. This is the most aerodynamic Tesla today, and they have covered it in 360-degree acoustic glass. Along with this, they've made some other tweaks to bring the sound as low as possible. So the sound reduction in this vehicle is going to be top quality. You're not going to be driving along and getting all of those tinny sounds, hearing all the road outside of the car. It's going to feel very premium. And presumably it's going to be cheaper for Tesla to actually make this vehicle, because they've changed 50% of the car parts. And I assume that they've done that in terms of efficiency and cost saving, rather than just to make it more difficult for themselves. And also they've removed parts. Again, I spoke about this in a recent video, so I won't dive into it too much. But for example, they've removed the indication stalk. They have now changed this to buttons, again, cutting back on costs and making it easier for them to manufacture. Another thing about this release is that it makes room for the future affordable hatchback vehicle that Tesla may release. So if you hold Tesla stock and you were concerned about the news of the price cuts and how everyone is saying this is really bad for Tesla, I really hope this video has at least shown you some different ways to think about that. But this is obviously just based on my own research. So I definitely advise you to go and challenge your own opinions. Go and try and find evidence for and against, that's important, Tesla price cuts being good for Tesla. Try and challenge that. And then think about this logically. Do you believe that these are good or bad? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another one very shortly.